And we're recording. G'day, Dave. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, good. Happy Wednesday. There we go. Middle of
Happy
hump day.
Wednesday. Yes, I had to ask what day it was as well. Right, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to join and jump in before we
Sounds
kick
good.
off. Now, you guys are based down in the grid down in Wynyard Quarterly, are you?
Do you know the grid's 10 years old next month?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a council investment that is paid the stretch of time. So yeah,
Yeah.
10,
Yeah,
10
it's a
years, 10 years. But yeah,
fantastic. That whole campus down there is pretty remarkable now. If you want to be in the tech sector, you've got everyone around the corner from you, really.
it's so good to be supported by people that are the people that are going through the same like growth agenda and aspirations that you've got, but also the fact that like AWS come in every week. There's lawyers around. You've got like on tap for pretty much everything you need. But we're we've gone from 3 of us to 30 of us over the last 12 months, so we're probably a little bit big to be in this space now. But you know, we'll figure that out at
Yeah.
the end of the year.
Nice. Nice. Kia ora, everybody. I'm just loading up the chat. Hi, CD. Yes, Dave, it's a little bit noisy, but you're probably all right, hopefully. The hustle and bustle of everything.
Uh,
If you
I
have a
can
question, if you have a question during this session, please feel free to drop it into the chat. It's easier for me to see questions rather than putting up your hand. I don't have that pane in front of me all the time. So drop a question in. If that question ends up to be more of a discussion, we can bring you into the call here to be on screen with us. So welcome everyone. My name is Justin Flitter. I'm the founder of New Zealand.ai. We started in 2017, 8 years ago, to help businesses understand why, where, and how to leverage artificial intelligence. And today we have an amazing family of partners that we work with to help companies accelerate their AI adoption, to build AI skills and capability and functionality within their organizations. Today is an AMA session. We're gonna kick off. We've got some conversation, but really this is an opportunity for all of you to throw Dave or myself questions. Generally speaking, I'm gonna let Dave introduce himself in a second, but we're gonna go through what an adoption journey looks like in our lived experience for many companies, and what are some of the use cases, what are some of the challenges, what are the roadblocks, what are the things that you need to be thinking about to drive AI adoption within your business. So Dave, tell us about Superhuman.
Kia ora. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably about a year ago, Justin, that me and you first met, and you've been in the race since 2017, and I think it's fair to say that Superhuman came onto the scene over a year ago, trying to find people that had been in the game far longer than the cool period of AI, which is kind of like now. So yeah, Superhuman, we're an Auckland headquartered business that that supports customers across Australia, New Zealand, and the US now, that to help with the actual implementation and engineering and the realization of what it can mean to be an intelligent organization in 2025. Essentially, that means cutting through the hype and all of the noise and helping businesses realize how they can be more efficient, grow, and manage the risk of these amazing technologies that are coming to floor. So yeah, I'm CEO and co-founder. I lead a team of 30 people based down here in the grid in Auckland. And yeah, it's just awesome making it happen for those companies that get it, want it, and have got the capability to see that this is no longer exploratory. It's meaningful, and your people do dumb stuff.
Yeah, I mean, back in 2017, 2018, we had corporates in New Zealand investing $1 million in a proof of concept to do a chatbot or digital avatar, digital human type technology back then. We can do that stuff on a very low monthly subscription now. The democratization of that technology with generative AI has just made that much more accessible for everyone. So yeah, it's been a monumental shift since we started this.
And that it's so painful for anyone that's in a position of like leading a business or leading a significant team, regardless of how big your organization is. Like it's a very noisy world that we live in, and social media is not the place to be getting the latest and greatest about how you should do like the next part of your digital transformation journey, unfortunately. And the most engagement we have with clients is where we're kind of unpicking that of going, right, what's real, what's not, what's fake news, what's reality, and how do we, and start just at the bedrock of like, where do you have smart people doing dumb stuff? And then kind of reverse engine that into, okay, cool, forget about the latest DeepSeek model. Let's start with like, what problem are we trying to solve here? And then figure that out.
And that's typically where businesses are starting, right? I mean, we're getting directors, board members, senior leadership team coming to us saying, we want to figure out how we utilize AI. Where's the value in our business leveraging artificial intelligence, right? And we'll get to the whole ROI equation as we get through the back end of this session and preparation for the next event. But they're concerned about security and governance. They're concerned about shadow AI use, so employees bringing AI in their back pocket that's unsanctioned or that's not provisioned by the company, so it doesn't sit within your tenancy. And we'll talk more about this stuff as we go. But they want to understand the practical use cases, right? What are the things, what are the task processes and workflows that AI is going to be able to augment or automate out of our business to free up people to do more useful work, right?
There's a not wholly useful phrase, but we use it pretty much every client engagement that we have, is that like, your business is your business. And marketing and business consultants will have told you ever since you decided to start a business that you need a unique selling proposition, you need a unique value proposition. Therefore, whether you're in manufacturing or pharmaceuticals or financial services or banking, if you looked at banking, they all operate differently. They're a bank. So it's very difficult to say these are the use cases for banking, because the technical debt of ANZ will be different from the technical debt of ASB. And that scales all the way down to a one-man band consulting organization. So there is no mythical Google answer or Perplexity answer that says, here are the use cases within this specific area. Now, can it be a good indicator to say, yeah, these are some areas to focus on? Yeah, 100%. But it never ceases to amaze me how the same vertical organization can look very different in terms of where they're applying their time and where they're not applying their time in the right way. So Zach actually raised a good question. He said, how do you identify the problem to solve? So regardless of industry, regardless of vertical, regardless of where you're at, we're not going into clients with preconceived ideas, right? We genuinely want to know and go on an exploratory journey with a customer across three areas. We tend to break it down to three things: people, risk, and revenue. So firstly, we have a conversation with, mainly it's the very senior people in an organization, the ones that are like holding the problem. And we're asking the question, where have you got smart people doing dumb stuff? Now, I've said this a few times already, but actually it's a really, really good anchor point. And you'll be amazed at, actually you wouldn't be amazed because you're in the same conversations that we're in, but on a macro basis, you'd be amazed to see how much gushing happens at that point. Oh, we've got spreadsheets all over for this, and we can't find knowledge because it's in 16 different document repositories. And on average, it takes us 6 hours to answer a support ticket because we can't find information. And it takes 9 months for an individual to join our organization and become productive. Why? Because our knowledge isn't in one place. And this process that the council have got us doing takes us 10 hours, right? But there's zero value in it. Like you end up getting this backlog of just business problems. There's no AI involved. And I'll let you sit with that for a minute, because it's a case of, we're not saying where AI can solve a problem. We're saying just where is the business value for you if you can unlock it. So we kind of go through three things, and we say, well, based on all of this wish list of pain that you've brought to the table, how many people have you got doing this activity, and what percentage of their time spending on doing it? And we try to boil this down into essentially a mathematical equation, which is, if you have an organization of 300 people and all of them are spending 2 hours a week on a specific thing, and that thing should be zero time because you can make that go away with the use of AI, you can release 200 times 2 hours into your business, which equates to a dollar figure. And when you do that across 10 or so different use cases, you end up with quite a large number. And then you've got two things. You've got your business case, pretty much. You've got a really quite pointy view of how we need to hold the business accountable for bringing intelligence in down the line, because we need to realize that value somehow. And you've engaged with experts who have been through that process with you to say, well, is this actually feasible or not? And to give you an indicator of how much investments needs to get there. An example of that is and actually I've just seen this work in a private demo, but we've done some work for a large engineering firm who have to deal with preparing reports for council. They do 3,000 of them a year. It takes 10 hours per report. It now takes 15 minutes per report. That's a lot of gross profit upside or efficiency within your business. So, and that's the kind of stuff we're looking at unpacking, but it's so not AI-led. It's just not the superhuman way, and it's not how we should be treating the market. Otherwise, you're trying to find a nail to hit with a hammer.
Okay, so where have you got people doing tasks they shouldn't be doing? Finding those opportunities and those spaces where AI is going to be able to add measurable value, right? So,
yeah,
when we think about, and there might not be a typical journey here, but typically, where would a company start on that AI journey? What are some of the things that they're going to do with AI to build skills and capability as a first task, if you like, on that journey? Like, I know for us, it's typically companies will build an AI agent or a chatbot to make it easier for the employees to find information in the handbook and policies and operational data, right? And the next bit would be, let's do that for our customers. Let's make our product or service information more easily available via a digital, an interactive avatar or a chatbot on the website, right? Which of course we could do, relatively inexpensively now with a high degree of accuracy and personality. And so that's kind of quite often where it starts for us. Where does it often start for you guys?
You're exactly right, and there's level 0 through to level 10, and getting to something, an intelligence that knows your business intimately for the purposes of finding and collating information and doing lightweight work is very much the starting point for most organizations. There tends to be three main camps of knowledge in any business that we've come across. What I'm about to say will be inaccurate, but there tends to be pockets. So CRM, where's your customer data? ERP/operational system, like where's the meat and potatoes of the organization itself in terms of how you do what you do, and then finance and admin. They sit as three distinct pockets of information. What we find is the amount of time that's spent multiplexing between trying to find a customer record, figuring out where an order is, tallying that up to an invoice, figuring out where my policies are around maternity leave, trying to understand what my leave obligation is. It's McKinsey at the most extreme view reckon it's 3.6 hours a day is spent finding information. That's a day. Half the working day is spent finding information.
That's what I call fluffing around, right? It's all that time where you're scrolling around your computer or emailing people or asking people to get information that you should have in a split second.
It impacts businesses, I believe, on two fronts. It's firstly onboarding of staff. People leave, people come on board, and it's painful. Time to value is a lot because just people can't find stuff. What do we sell? How do we sell it? What are our terms and conditions? How do our terms and conditions relate to our products? All of those things. And you look at some organizations that sell 60, 70,000 SKUs of products, it just becomes a big problem. So how do you get time to value really quick? And secondly, that 3.6 hours is cherry picking information from around different areas. And then you're doing something with it, like responding to a customer or writing a report or doing a presentation to your team. That whole collation of things for the purposes of getting something done should be nothing more than an ask. And maybe I'm a purist, but that 3.6 hours should be close to zero. But more importantly, it's like, can a human being actually work flat out for 8 hours a day? Probably not. So it's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder about what you do with your time back. If it's scrolling on TikTok, the business has got something wrong. But it's definitely not wasted time clicking around the screen. I know that.
Okay, so a business is starting to.
CD raised a good question. Once CD was saying, once you have a problem to solve, how do you choose the right tech solution? It's a good question, CD. But we're going to come on. We'll come on to tech choices in a bit, actually, if you want, Justin.
Yeah. Okay, so let's solidify this. We've got general AI tools with web search, right? There's massive large language models built on trillions of data points, massive context windows that have got internet search. You basically got a know-it-all digital assistant sitting in your back pocket, right? Everyone's got access to this information. And so you can ask it, to draft up a marketing strategy, to monitor your competitors' websites, to, draft an agenda for a meeting. All of this stuff, which has been done a gazillion times before, so no one should be starting a task from scratch, right? So that's kind of phase one, get into that. Then you're going to start realizing that ChatGPT knows nothing about your business at all. And so in order to be able to use these AI models and these large language models, you've actually got to give it some information. You've got to teach it about your business. And more often than not, businesses don't want to be sharing their company IP with a public AI model. And so that's kind of where, and we're leading into this tech conversation, that's when we start having the conversation around enterprise grade tooling, right? Where we want tools that are deployed within your company tenancy. So you've got this walled garden around being able to leverage artificial intelligence with your company documents in a safe place, right? So there's less risk, right? And by then ingesting or getting the AI tools to ingest different documents, you can start working with them, like you said, in terms of being able to summarize a report or understand your SWOT analysis, your company's strategic goals, all of that type of thing, and augment that with new information that might come from web searches or other research to be able to build that out, right? And I'm kind of thinking in phases in terms of how not just my use, but company use as well. And so ingesting that information into those AI tools allows you to start working with them, right? Whether that's answering customer questions or, drafting your own email responses and all that kind of stuff.
And here's where the power of the large language model or large vision model or any of those technologies becomes a slight problem. And they're almost too good. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I'll give an example of a piece of work we did for a tax advisory firm. So if you go and ask a large language model for tax advice, it will confidently give you very good, compelling tax advice. The problem being is it's your problem as the user to define what actual advice you want, what's your jurisdiction, and what are all the variables that mean the tax advice is good. So if I enter into a conversation with human being, New Zealand-based tax advisor, he or she is going to ask me a series of probing questions that mean they're going to get the right intel to give me the right advice. AI doesn't actually do that until you give it the context to be able to do it. So, for example, if I ask for income tax advice for the cryptocurrency I bought in 2018, the AI out of the box knows New Zealand law, Australian law, American law, tax in the UK, tax in the UAE. Unless I be very specific about who I am and what my situation is, the advice I get is going to be inaccurate. So why is that important? It's important because as you start to lean on AI more and more for making critical business decisions, unless the context of your business, essentially your identity as a person and your identity as a business is contextually embedded into that AI, your risk profile goes up. Now, the good news is building AI with context is pretty straightforward to do. You just need to do it. But it's surprising how little information a business has ever collected on itself. If I turn around to Justin and said, give me the context of your organization, you haven't got that written down anywhere. The most you've got is like the marketing view of what the organization is from the website. But if I said, well, what legislation are you governed by? What jurisdictions do you operate in? That kind of stuff's probably never been written down for a lot of businesses. And this is the approach we've taken from a superhuman perspective, is that AI tools are always going to get better over time. The underlying language technologies are going to consistently get more progressively powerful. They have since we started with GPT 3.5 Turbo, all the way up through to the hundreds of models that are now available, into thousands of models that are available. They're getting better. That should not be the concern of the customer. The concern of the customer should be, am I using the latest and greatest tech to stay competitive? But is everything contextually safe on top of that? And that actually is where the grunt work comes in, building that contextual layer of what policies and procedures do you want the AI to conform by? What legislation is appropriate for the AI to conform to? How do you want to act? How do you speak? What are your policies? What are your procedures? And we approach that from two lenses. One's the business, but more importantly, the AI is working for the person. It's not all about the business. Like, my job is different from my team's job. So therefore, my answer from an intelligence should be very different from marketing's, because I'm a strategist, business guy. I'm not a marketer. So therefore, textual response should always be different. And that's getting to level 3 or level 4, which is, yeah, you're kind of figuring out how powerful this stuff is, but you want to now almost shrink it back in to be working for you as opposed to working against you.
So I guess in platforms like you've got enterprise platforms, that system prompt, if you like, is hard coded in the back end of it, which sets the parameters for the engagement. And then as an individual employee, worker, you might also have your custom instructions or some not information, which it's then refining the output for you, right? So it's
yeah, I mean, in a sense, and there's numerous short and long ways to achieve that output. Hard coding a context that's passed through to the large language model is one way to do it. The way we approach it is through a dynamic architecture where, based on what the user's asking, we retrieve the right information to pass through to the LLM so it's aware. So if someone asks for something that's related to policy, we will check to see what policies the company needs to adhere to, and then we'll go and fetch that information and we'll pull it through. You looked at this on the scale of, say, I don't know, Air New Zealand or Fonterra or a massive organization. Their context could be like gigs and gigs and gigs of data. Even with 1 million tokens of context length, like, it's just, you end up, it actually goes through the floor if you end up over contexting that.
All right, so Leon's got a good question here, and this is kind of a really relatively good segue for us as well. So thanks, Leon. So would you say the next step of practical LLMs would be AI agents, right? So at the moment, we've got these AI models or large language models that you can basically ask a question and get a response. Now, you can ask a better question and get a more detailed response, and you can do multi-step questioning to start building layers and layers and layers on things. But at the moment, they're really good at doing a task, right? Now, sure, we can build in workflows to start extending that out to do multiple things. So you would effectively create a workflow automation type process with AI and humans interacting at different stages to complete that job. Where AI agents are starting to become more interesting, and we've got a couple of deep dive sessions on AI agents. If you're in learn.newzealand.ai, go into the deep dive sessions. We're going to go into AI agents end of the month. Is actually using APIs and intelligent workflow to automate more of that process. So you've got multi-step workflows that are completely managed by the AI autonomously, right? And if we think about that, we've had custom GPTs, we've got kind of tasks in ChatGPT, which are rudimental, pretty basic steps in that direction. But there are now libraries and marketplaces for AI agents out there, and no-code app builders and things like that for people to be able to integrate different tools and do different things. So it's the integration of disparate data sets and then using large language models or using your AI tools to connect that step together. You might have a more articulate description of that, Mr. Howden.
No. So I'll try not to be too purist on it, but I'll give you the disconnect, which I think is a human problem to solve, not a technology problem to solve. We're not ready, if that makes sense. And what I mean we're not ready is the technology is there to build. We've been able to automate workflows through robotic process automation for 20 years. Right. And what we're saying is we now want something that's not a human clicking the button that goes and does that robotic process. Because right now we have the technology to be able to build that process on the fly and have an AI decide to execute it. That is a stretch for the human psychology barrier. It's not a technology issue. It's just a case of at what point does the higher percentage of 8 billion people have the trust to be able to go, yeah, I'm happy for an AI agent to pay my tax bill. I don't know if that makes. I don't know. So, are we in a technical barrier to this being a thing? No. Are we in a trust barrier to this being a thing? That is going to be the biggest hurdle, I think over time. Because at that point, you are genuinely saying the future of work is agentic displacement, which becomes a fear barrier for a lot of people. Now, I don't subscribe to AI is going to take everyone's jobs. That's not been the case for any technology we've seen before. We've just seen the shift, the migration of work. But
we haven't had anything quite as transformative as artificial intelligence, though.
No, we haven't seen anything.
And we can't necessarily look back to look forward.
No, exactly. And the concept of robotic process automation is that something needs to be done and it's executed by a human. And I want to build a car. I put materials in, a car comes out the other end. I'm quite happy with that. I'm still involved in the process. If it goes wrong, it's on me. If it goes right, it's on me. Whereas you're kind of in this hands-off situation of, did my tax bill get paid? What's going on? I don't really know. And that obfuscation away from the accountability of the task, I think, becomes a barrier to adoption. Almost, and this is probably, I'm trying to think on the fly of an example, but almost why people didn't trust using the internet for using their credit card in the early days, because I don't know what happens when I hit send. And it turns out that's just a trust thing. Over 20 years, people got very used to buying things online and the market shifted. Similar to cloud transformation, like people didn't trust that, they didn't want their data in Australia for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden we were used to it and we just get on with it. So I can't call when that tipping point is going to be. I don't think it's going to be as quick as we think, though. I think we're going to see a lot of noise about it. Everyone's going to think that it's happening. But
again, this technology is chipping away at some tasks we do. And for some roles, it is going to chip away at more tasks that they do than others, right? But it's a finding, that repetitive, tedious, boring, frustrating shit that you have to do every day that we can strip out, right? And AI is going to, like we said at the top of the call, AI is going to be really, really good at doing that stuff. And AI agents are going to take it one step in terms of you asking a question, getting a response, doing something else. The AI agent is going to be able to do more of that process autonomously for you and work with multiple different tools. So if you've got to collect information from 3 different disparate data sources and do these other 3 steps along the way, AI is probably going to be able to do that whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
Then, yeah, right. Again, it's replacing the point and click that you would have to do to connect the dots, right?
And again, in terms of like the trust factor, when it comes down to personal AI agents that are doing things for you, where there's a trust barrier, do I hand over control to something else? That is human adoption at 8 billion person scale. So that's the end game. The right now game is, if the value of putting AI in control of a task is so great, the business makes the decision, not the person. Because the business is beholden to the shareholders. The shareholders want upside, basically, increased shareholder value. Example, we have built an AI agent that automates engineering reporting. It takes a 10-hour process, makes it 15 minutes. It doubles the ability for this organization to put work through their business. Now, it doesn't really matter whether people trust it or not. If the tech is proven, the upside is so huge, we're doing it, because there's no way we can't do it, because the alternative is going out of business because someone else is going to do it. So you end up with this, well, like, where are the market forces that are meaning we have to adopt? And if you were an organization sat without email, a website, without a car, you just can't compete. It's just impossible for you to compete in a technology-fueled ecosystem and economy where you need to have electricity, which was a technology at one point, which people didn't trust. And we're going to go through that cycle again. It's just very alien to us to be in such a social media-driven world and seeing all of the like, for example, electricity, cars, they all had the same fear structure around them, I believe. But you didn't see it because the only way to engage with it was your mates down the pub and reading the paper once every week. Now it's anything happens and it's just bang, straight on LinkedIn or all over social media. And that is going to drive down adoption, but it's going to increase velocity of technology at the same time. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think, added into that, the pace of change is the one which is getting people, right? And although, you've pointed out with AI agents, maybe it's not necessarily going to disrupt how we work as fast as some commentators are saying, but that pressure point for adoption, that sense of urgency is going to come when your competitor is all of a sudden leaps and bounds ahead of you because their AI adoption is now 2 years in, and their workforce has become augmented with AI, and they have all of those system optimizations enriched with artificial intelligence, and there's no way that you're going to be able to catch up.
There's catching up, and there's also the retention of the talent in and around that organization. If you are an organization that is wholly creating its value through people spending selling their time, and the creation of artifacts based on knowledge sets, so compliance reporting, audits, engineering reports, that time should be as small as possible from when you have the data to when you can produce the value, the asset. Now, the asset is the thing your client pays for. They don't pay for the stupid amount of hours it takes to get the thing done in the middle. So if you could shortcut that time, that's the bit that will essentially decide whether you're in or out of business, because you then got you can price the market. But unfortunately, if you know that something's going to take you 100 hours, there is a cost of human labor to do the 100 hours worth of work. And like that middle bit with AI in the mix is a race to zero.
Okay, so as a construction company, you might use some AI, you might use Superhuman to create your resource consent application to council, and you might reduce that time to produce from 10 hours to half an hour. But if the council's not using AI to evaluate your resource consent application, it still takes just as much time and costs just as much money to get that part of the process done. So for the construction company, there might be a slight improvement on GP, but where do you start thinking about this horizontal integration where we actually have to start looking at our supply chain relationships and partners to actually be able to really achieve some of that, not just productivity, but cost effectiveness out of this?
Yeah, there's going to be two sides to like the change equation. You can get to a point where council, who are essentially the gatekeeper of bureaucracy, in a positive way, it's there for a reason, right? It's there to control quality and everything. They can say, look, we're not accepting anything unless it comes in this format, right? Which is essentially AI to AI services. That's a mandated scenario. So that forces market change, as in you can't be submitting a topological report, an engineering report, a building resource application without it either being created by an AI or coming from an AI service directly, which is a stretch, right? That's like mandating. We've had this before, right? You can't send stuff into council by post anymore, or whatever, or turning off checkbooks. That's because that technical debt just hangs around for far too long, right? That would be the quick way to say, how do we impact supply chain? Right now, though, you kind of just got to look at your sphere of influence. Like, what can you actually influence as someone who's got the ability to invest? And can I, as an organization, change council's procurement activity and technology strategy? Over time, maybe, but right now, my job is to make my team and my customers as efficient as possible to help them grow, be more efficient, and manage their risk. At a certain point, there is no option because cost pressure comes on. You can't do things the same way anymore. The budgets get slashed, and you're forced to innovate, and from a council perspective, and then it's forced up on everybody at that point. But right now, there is AI written and AI fact-checked consenting documents that are going to council being checked by a human being, 100%. That doesn't mean there's not a beneficiary for people writing the documents. It's just the fact that it's like sprinting at 1,000,000 miles an hour and hitting a brick wall, because I think it's 20 days. So when you submit, there's a 20-day cycle to get your resource consent approved. We've already checked whether it makes the criteria or not, because there's a separate AI service that checks the criteria. So we know whether it's going to get passed or not. So that should be nothing more than a green tick that says, thank you for your submission, you're now approved.
Imagine.
We'll absolutely get there, because if 6 months ago, when we've been in business for 14 months now, and a lot of the time customers come to us and there's a question about where do we find our first clients. A lot of this starts with a conversation of, I have this problem, can you guys solve it? And we're like, hold my beer, let's put some guys with PhDs onto this and figure it out. And 2 or 3 weeks later, we say, look, we think this thing can be this thing. And they're like, yeah, we'll show you. And the seeds are there. You can kind of see how it could operate, and it gives people the confidence to invest. So the organizations with the biggest problems are the ones moving the quickest right now.
Right, team, send through. We've covered an awful lot in the last 40 minutes or so. An awful lot. It's been great. Good discussion. Really, really interesting. The rubber's hitting the road here, but there are still things to consider.
Question choice, which I think it was Zach maybe, or CD, one of the guys had a question around tech choice. I kind of touched on it really, really, really quickly, but I'll expand on it for 30 seconds. Technology is going to kind of go like this. It's language model technology, which is kind of a subset of AI, is going to continue to get more IQ points. And AI is not just large language models, it's a broad spectrum of vision and data pipelines and all kinds of infrastructure that sits around it. But LLMs are the hero of the day. The trick is to not get caught in technical debt as you're building out the intelligence for your organization. And there are all kinds of rabbit holes you can go down in terms of, oh, look, we'll have a private model and we'll distill an open source model and we'll have that all to ourselves. That's great. And you spend $50,000, $100,000 doing that. And then all of a sudden there's another model that's flavor of the month, and you've got to do the whole thing again. So our advice is, don't jump on the latest craze. Work through the publicly available frontier models that are consistently iterating, and as they get better, you take advantage of those, and it's just automatically taking advantage of them. And focus on getting that contextual layer and integration layer right. This is what we do. That's our job, to make sure those things are managed and operating. And then as tech gets better, you benefit from it. That's the way it should be. And at the speed of change, it's get in the swim lane and hold on. That's kind of almost the best way to go for it.
Yeah, agreed. Tech choice, tool choice is always tricky. We run the AI Toolkit webinars on a Friday, which take people through all sorts of different use cases and jobs and problems that you're going to have at work, and show you how to do them with different tools to try and help you figure out which ones are going to work well for you. In the first instance, I don't really think it matters whether you, as a pick, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, on a paid account or a business account, so that you've got some data privacy, just to start getting some skills and understanding how they work, right? Then as you start rolling out and building your confidence and wanting to deploy solutions across the enterprise, you're going to want to have some safeguards and some guardrails rather around that infrastructure. And that's when an enterprise solution, that orchestration layer that you talked about, right, which is the enterprise tooling, you want to have that deployed. But again, you're still going to want to use those foundation models as part of it. I've been experimenting with running some AI models on my laptop. DeepSeek R1, a smaller version of that. PHI 4 from Microsoft, the Llama models. And they're useful from experimentation and those sorts of things, but nothing's better than using Perplexity or ChatGPT at the moment in terms of actual usefulness and functionality.
And this is where there's this, I believe, the cycle of social media noise and industry noise is counterproductive to clarity and adoption. So I think DeepSeek in the first week had 3.5 million downloads. Yes, Microsoft and AWS have put them into their orchestration engine, so you can deploy them within their environments. Go and find me an enterprise adoption of DeepSeek that's actually driving meaningful workloads for a customer. We live and breathe this stuff. We can't name one yet. That's okay. But even from you get this $3 million number, this 3 million download number, equating into literally not a whole lot of stuff. I think when we presented at the AI forum last year, we said, look, those that are actually getting on and making this work aren't talking about it. There's the heroes are the ones that are actually getting this business value. They're not out there shouting about it because it's their competitive edge, and they're using robust, proven models that have been around for at least 2 or 3 months, that have undergone battle testing. They're like, right, we know that this works, and we're off to the races. And unfortunately, I say enterprise, that's a big thing. Just business adoption doesn't happen from someone spinning something on a local environment. There's just 1,000,001 things in and around that. far simpler than you think. It just, the world seems to make it quite complicated. I mean, a tradition from zero to something that's changing your world is a 6-week process for us. Like, we're not talking 2 years of digital transformation.
No. So CD's right. Most businesses in New Zealand are SMEs. So, you know, an enterprise grade solution might be overkill for some of them. What would they be able to use, right? So immediately off the top of my head, you're going to have companies are going to be typically in 2 different tech stacks, or one of 2 different tech stacks. You're either going to be in a Google Workspace or you're going to be in M365. And both of those have fantastic AI that's built into it. Of course, you've got Copilot for M365 and Google Gemini, which sits in Workspace. So whichever environment, whichever tenancy that you're working in, use the AI that you've got within those platforms. It's all, you know, secure within that. As I said, secure within your tenancy. It's a safer place for your people to play and use those tools. So, you know, drive adoption skills and capability through using, you know, those tools. That would be my recommendation anyway. From
great place to start. I mean, we talk about in-app AI a lot. So going back to what we were talking about earlier around most businesses have some form of CRM, ERP, and finance and administration platform. That AI inside of those applications, which is where Microsoft 365 Copilot sits, a few of those areas, and the same with like their Dynamics 365 Copilot, they sit all in those areas. They're very good at the in-workflow, like intelligence. Yeah. Broader across the street intelligence becomes far more challenging, and the reason for that is, whilst Microsoft would love you to believe that everything exists in their world, that's not the reality.
No. It's okay. As soon as you want to integrate a third-party tool into something, it becomes quite complicated.
And that's complicated. Yeah, and none of the suppliers want that either. They don't want you doing that. So, Salesforce, HubSpot, Dynamics 365, Azure, AWS environments, like the bigger you get, the more kind of complexity that there is.
Okay.
We think that there is a next level up from that, which is use your in-app AI, because that's how you get immediateness. Once you start looking at actual automation of your work, or having the AI work for you, you need to have a layer of AI across all of your systems, that's what we come in. That's what we do.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about tech. Quite often in this process, it's 10% tech and 90% people, right? So how do we start thinking about, you know, we're bringing in the conversation around artificial intelligence to the business. Some employees are going to feel a hell of a lot of nervousness and anxiety around it. It is going to change, and even if they are keen to adopt, it's going to change what they do and how they do it, right? So there is a change process. I don't necessarily like the word transformation and all of this. This is an evolution, and it's micro steps as we go through, right? But what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that you would advise to help companies, you know, plan out this process with people at the heart? How do you bring people on that journey with you?
Angelina actually raises a question that's quite aligned to this in terms of like the speed at which you can get adoption across a smaller business versus a larger business. So I'll touch on that as I kind of go through this one. We'll have all been through technology changes over the past 20 years. So I'm moving from an old nasty CRM to HubSpot, or I'm kicking out Salesforce, I'm moving this one in, and you've got there's a new thing coming, IT are releasing a new thing. And user adoption is normally eyes rolling in the back of the head. This is painful. That user adoption, a lot of the time, is happening throughout this digital transformation era that we've all been in, which is we're doing something differently. What that digital transformation era over the past 3 or 4 years, well, like 2016 through to like 2000 and like 2021, 22, that period was not really about digital transformation. It was about, we're going to consume compute in a different way, move from on-prem to the cloud. But the users, me and you and everyone on this call, we didn't really benefit from that. Right? It was the CFO benefited because it was a different commercial rate and there wasn't as much technical debt. So this digital transformation was not the transformation; it was a cost transformation process. So the adoption of that on the human level was quite challenging because there was zero impact for me. Do I get anything more out of my day from using one CRM to another? No, I'm just going to click different colored buttons, right? But you fast forward to 2024, 2025, where what's being put in front of your users and your business colleagues is you were doing this tedious drudgery work that took you far too long, clicking around different systems, taking you half an hour to respond to a service ticket, taking you 10 hours to write a report. I'm putting something into your workflow that removes that but keeps you in control, but removes that. Now, you tell me that won't get adopted because it's literally adding satisfaction and time and removing tedious nature of work back into someone.
I think that job satisfaction piece is really important here, right? Like everyone knows when they wake up in the morning, they've got to go, don't want to have to be writing that, or it's, it's report week. I've got to do the paper for the board. It's like, we want to be out doing deals, working with customers, finding solutions. The EQ part of of being human, not point and click, doing repetitive stuff. So look, you frame it up well. So it's a good way of doing it.
Does that mean there won't be individuals and businesses that are going to push back? Of course, they're going to push back, right? Of course. The framing is different. You're not asking someone to do something differently with no upside, and the upside, the needle is just so great that you've got to really question if they're not prepared to embrace that. Do you actually want them in your business or not? And that's the question you make a business owner. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet.
Yeah. Stephanie, what do you consider a personal AI agent? Are they like a virtual assistant? You can give access to my CMS and ERP and ask it to perform a task. Is that the sort of thing they can do? Yeah. I mean, again, it's about a piece of software that has connectivity into data sets, and then you create the multi-step workflow of what needs to happen with it, right? So again, this is not intelligent enough to be able to figure it out on their own. You can't give it a problem to solve and then it goes and figures it out just yet. But no doubt that will come. But you've certainly got to you've still got to wire up, if you like, what that workflow, what that process looks like. I mean, if you think of... Yeah.
I appreciate framing it from the bottom up and top down. So if you kind of think of it from a top down perspective, imagine, so this is answering Stephanie's question, or trying to answer Stephanie's question. Imagine if you had an individual in your business that knew all of the intellectual property about your organization. It knew everything about your customers from your CRM, everything about your operations from your ERP, and the regulatory world at which that business existed. And it knew you as an individual, what you were responsible for. If you had something that was next to you that knew all of those things, just think about how much work that could do and what it could do for you. And this is not lightweight stuff. This is, you're thinking you need to get something and you ask for it and it just gets created. So that grunt work of thinking, putting together proposals, responding to complex queries, filling out RFPs from complex sales documents, filling out security risk assessments, they're all just knowledge. It's all just knowledge that exists. But you're the grey matter in the middle that's got to use your fingers and your eyes to put it all together, which is just, that's what we mean by done. We don't mean the work's done. We just mean it's you as a human being were not built to read libraries of information at light speed, and your fingers can only type so quick. That's the dumb bit in the middle. Doesn't mean the output's done. Just how you get there is just constrained.
Mm. Okay, we are coming to the end of this. We've got a couple of other questions coming through. We are going to be hosting a AI ROI event together on March the 6th. We will let you all know how to participate and get involved in that event. That'll be here in Auckland. It'll be in person as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that, and working with 20 or 30 companies actually through some of that methodology and that thinking that you've talked about today, to help them define that business case and find that value proposition. Stephanie's added, are there programs available now that can yes, there are. Yep, it's quite doable, very doable. Yeah, come and have a chat to Dave or I. We can help. Yep. Blake asked if you got any funding, because your business, like Superhuman's, actually growing pretty quickly. It's accelerating at a fast rate of knots, keeping pace with the change of AI.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a sensible long-term business, so we've not gone out to the market and raised significant capital and bootstrapped and funded by the founders. And we've been funding the business off free cash flows. We are looking to do a capital raise mid this year, because our software and services are wanting to accelerate into new markets across the US and across Australia as well. So we'll look to do that through a capital funding round. If anyone's keen to come on the journey, you know where I am. Happy to go on the journey with as many of you guys as possible.
Awesome. Okay, so you are now all members of the New Zealand AI Academy here on learn.newzealand.ai. You've got access to the community resources, the chat, resources like guidelines and best practices and all that type of thing. These free events. We're also running deep dive sessions on AI agents later this month. Steve Ballantyne's doing a masterclass on Mid-Journey for your designers and marketing and creative. And there'll be a lot more coming, with more AI experts joining me to help you learn practical AI skills so that you can supercharge your potential at work and whatever you are doing. Thank you very much for being part of our community. It's fantastic that you've been able to spend the last hour and join us in this discussion. Dave Howden, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us your practical knowledge and experience. It's ridiculously valuable and useful, and look forward to doing some more with you in the next few months.
Thanks for the questions, guys. Appreciate it. Good to hang out, and see you guys later.
Nice one. Thanks very much, team. Have a good rest of your day.